Imagine a man so far ahead of his time that even today we're still catching up to the blueprints he left behind. A man who dreamed of lighting the entire Earth without wires, who envisioned smartphones a century ago, and who believed he could bend time itself. This is not science fiction. This is the story of Nikola Tesla, the forgotten architect of the modern world. He was a scientist, inventor, mystic, and prophet. A man who spoke of vibrating the earth, harvesting energy from the sky, and receiving signals from the stars. Dismissed as mad in his time, he died alone, his secrets confiscated by the government within hours. But in the shadows of history, his name never truly vanished. Because behind every electric motor, behind every wireless signal, behind every whisper of free energy, lurks the mind of a man who might have actually seen the future and tried to bring it back to us. So if you've ever wondered what genius looks like when the world isn't ready for it, if you're curious about lost inventions, forbidden science, and the line between myth and reality, then make sure to subscribe and stay with us till the very end. Because what you're about to hear is not just a biography, it's a journey into mystery, science, betrayal, and brilliance that just might change how you see the world. This is the untold story of Nikola Tesla, and it begins now. In a dimly lit room filled with the scent of aged paper, humming with the faint crackle of ozone, a man once sat alone, unseen, misunderstood, and ahead of everyone else by at least a century. His name was Nikola Tesla, and if history were just, every wall socket and every home would bear his image. But justice, like energy, follows paths of least resistance, and Tesla never chose the easy path. Born into obscurity and dying in relative poverty, Tesla remains one of the most paradoxical figures in scientific history. A man both revered and forgotten, praised yet discarded, hailed as a genius but treated like a madman. In the chapters of invention, he is a ghost, a flash of brilliance often misattributed, misunderstood, and wrapped in layers of myth as powerful as the coils he built. But beneath the legends lies something more haunting, a truth so bold and strange, it reads like science fiction. He was not merely a scientist. He was a visionary who believed that all life was bound by invisible currents. Electricity was not just a force for machines, it was the breath of the cosmos, and Tesla believed he had discovered its rhythm. To understand Tesla is to venture beyond mere engineering. It is to touch the sacred, to listen to frequencies no one else hears. He wasn't just trying to power homes, he was trying to decode the language of the universe itself. People today remember the bullet points: alternating current, Tesla coils, wireless transmission. But few know the stories in between, the conversations with light, the whispers of alien signals, the disappearance of his journals, the strange rituals involving numbers, pigeons, and frequencies. Who was Nikola Tesla? A scientist, a sorcerer of the natural world, or something stranger, an antenna through which the future sent its signals? We begin not with his inventions, but with the man himself. A man who walked the streets of Manhattan in immaculately tailored suits, gloves always on, head held high, with no money in his pockets, but lightning in his veins. A man who claimed to have received messages from the stars. A man who shunned wealth to pursue what he believed would elevate humanity. He spoke 8 languages, had photographic memory, and could memorize entire books word for word after a single reading. He lived in a world others couldn't see, one of energy, vibration, and frequency. While Edison hammered away at tangible problems with trial and error, Tesla would envision a machine entirely in his mind, construct it, test it mentally, identify flaws, then build it perfectly. Who else could do this? And yet, the world wasn't ready for him. When he first unveiled his AC motor, he was met not with applause, but with derision. Edison, who had already commercialized DC, saw Tesla's innovation as a threat and retaliated with public smear campaigns, electrocuting animals to convince people that AC was deadly. Meanwhile, Tesla pressed forward quietly, with dignity and resolve. But the tragedies of Tesla's life weren't just about money or recognition. They were existential. He knew he was glimpsing things no one else could. "The present is theirs," he once said. "The future for which I really worked is mine." Perhaps this is why myths grew around him so easily. Maybe it was easier for the world to believe he was mad than to accept that he might be right. He claimed he could transmit electricity without wires. He believed the earth could resonate like a tuning fork. He insisted that numbers held divine power, especially 3, 6, and 9. And most bizarrely of all, he claimed that a white pigeon once visited him, glowed with celestial light, and conveyed that his time on Earth was near its end. When Tesla died in 1943, alone in the New Yorker hotel, the FBI immediately seized his belongings. They combed through his trunks, confiscated his papers, and locked them away. Why? What were they afraid of? To understand Tesla is to open that trunk, not just the physical one, but the metaphysical. To peek into a world where energy flows freely, communication spans planets, and consciousness may just be another form of electricity. This is his story, told not just through the facts, but through the wonder and the questions he left behind. A story of light, shadows, silence, and sparks. So dim the lights. Let the coils hum. Let us begin where all great currents start, with a single charged particle, Tesla himself. It began not with a whisper, but with thunder. July 10, 1856. The sky above the village of Smiljan was at war with itself. Thunder clashed against mountain stone, and the heavens tore open with lightning that split the night like divine fury. Beneath that churning chaos, in a small candlelit room, a woman labored in agony. As each contraction gripped her body, the world outside echoed her pain with its own convulsions of light and sound. And then, as the clock struck midnight, a child entered the world. At the precise moment, a blinding bolt of lightning struck a field nearby, scorching the earth and illuminating the room in a brief, terrible glow. The midwife staggered back, pale, trembling. "This child," she gasped, "will be a child of darkness." But the mother, Juka Mandik, her brow beaded with sweat, lifted her head and replied, "No, he will be a child of light." And so Nikola Tesla came into this world, baptized by lightning and thunder, born with a prophecy attached to his soul. From the start, he was different. As a baby, he rarely cried. As a toddler, he was unusually sensitive to sounds, hearing faint clocks ticking in distant rooms or insects crawling on wood floors. He could not bear loud noises or sudden movements. He would grow up to say that his senses were overcharged, like antennae designed not for the human world, but for something higher, more complex. He spoke early and with clarity. By 5, he could recite entire poems. By 6, he could memorize books. By 7, he was inventing devices of his own, miniature water turbines carved from wood, mechanical toys powered by the wind, and crude electrical experiments using copper coins and bits of iron. But this sensitivity came at a cost. He was plagued by visions, brief, vivid hallucinations that would appear before his eyes like phantoms. He saw images of people and places he had never encountered. He once wrote, "In some instances, I have seen all the scenes and heard all the sounds, just as though in real life." Doctors thought he was ill. Priests whispered that he might be possessed, but Tesla understood it differently. He believed he was tuning in to frequencies others couldn't hear. To him, thoughts were electric, and consciousness itself was a kind of resonance. Later in life, he would say, "My brain is only a receiver." In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. Where did this sensitivity come from? Some say it was inherited. His mother, Juka, was a remarkable woman. Though uneducated formally, she was intellectually gifted and had what Tesla called a supreme intuition. She could recite thousands of verses from Serbian poetry and constructed labor-saving devices for the household. Egg beaters, washing tools, mechanical spinners. Tesla credited her with his engineering mind. "Whatever I am," he once said, "I owe to her." His father, Milutin Tesla, was a stern Serbian Orthodox priest and poet who insisted that Nikola become a man of the cloth. But the boy resisted. He was drawn not to the pulpit, but to the stars, to machines, and to the invisible currents in the air. When he spoke of electricity, it was not as a tool, but as a kind of spirit, alive, mysterious, and capable of things no one had imagined. By the time he was a teenager, Tesla was already dreaming of inventions so advanced they bordered on the magical: a perpetual motion machine, a flying craft powered by ambient energy, a beam of power that could transmit electricity without wires. He had never seen such things in books. They came to him in dreams, or rather, in flashes. These flashes of light would become a lifelong theme. Often, before an idea struck him, Tesla would see a sudden, intense burst of light in his mind's eye, followed by an image of the complete invention. He did not sketch or tinker to invent. He saw things whole. He described one early moment as a boy. While watching a sunset in the hills, he suddenly saw the entire design of a new type of water wheel appear before him. Without tools or calculations, he began to mentally test it, adjusting the blades, estimating efficiency, calculating the torque entirely in his mind. But these flashes often came with intense migraines, seizures, or episodes where he would fall into trances. He became obsessed with avoiding contamination, compulsively washing his hands, refusing to touch hair, jewelry, or anything he found repulsive. He once counted every step he took and calculated the cubic volume of every plate of food he ate. He feared germs long before germ theory was widely accepted. To the villagers, he was odd. To his teachers, he was gifted but uncontrollable. To his family, he was a paradox, intensely frail, yet mentally unstoppable. One local story tells of young Tesla jumping into a freezing river to escape a fever dream. He believed the cold would reset his brain. He nearly died of hypothermia, but recovered with renewed clarity and began working on what he called a light machine, his first crude idea for an electric lamp. In school, he devoured science, math, and philosophy, often outpacing his teachers. But his brilliance was erratic. Sometimes he would disappear for days into solitude, only to return with a new theory. At other times, he would collapse from exhaustion after mentally working for hours without eating or sleeping. One day, while walking near his village with a friend, Tesla became transfixed by the rhythmic motion of a river wheel. He suddenly cried out and dropped to his knees, scribbling diagrams in the dirt. "That's it," he shouted. "The solution is in the rotation." He had just visualized the fundamental principle behind alternating current, the rotating magnetic field. He was 16. But before he could realize any of these dreams, tragedy struck. Tesla's older brother, Dane, who was considered the prodigy of the family, died in a riding accident. Nikola, who idolized Dane, was devastated. Worse, some family members suspected that Nikola, who had playfully startled the horse, was indirectly to blame. Whether true or not, the guilt stayed with Tesla for the rest of his life, manifesting in a deep loneliness and sense of existential burden. From that moment, something changed in him. He became more withdrawn, more obsessive, but also more focused. It was as if a veil had been lifted, and his life's purpose had crystallized in the fires of grief. He would not become a priest. He would not remain in Smiljan. He would chase the light that thundered through the sky on the night of his birth. He would learn its secrets and give them to the world, or die trying. By the time Nikola Tesla left his small village and entered higher education, it was clear to anyone who met him. This young man did not merely study the world, he saw through it. While other students memorized formulas, Tesla drifted into a state of electric inspiration, where complex machines came alive in his mind and danced before him as if they had always existed, waiting only for him to open his eyes. At the Technical University in Graz, Austria, Tesla was a prodigy in mathematics and physics, often astonishing professors with his recall and computational speed. But it wasn't just that he was quick, he was different. He could visualize the most complex mechanical structures in perfect working detail without ever writing a line. He didn't need drawings. His mind was the workshop. One professor remarked that Tesla's brain functioned like a factory without smoke. There was no experimentation in his early inventions, only visualization. Tesla would mentally build a machine, run it for weeks in his imagination, observe wear and error, then refine the design. By the time he physically constructed it, it worked flawlessly. He once told a friend, "I do not rush into actual work. When I get an idea, I start at once building it up in my imagination." But such brilliance came with torment. Sensitivity to sound, light, and vibration grew worse. He could hear insects crawling in walls. The ticking of watches in nearby rooms drove him to rage. He would later describe being able to hear thunder over 500 miles away. He also began suffering from insomnia. For days he wouldn't sleep, wandering streets, whispering to himself, writing equations in chalk on stones, obsessing over the nature of energy. He would later claim that he only needed 2 hours of sleep per night, though often dozed in brief trances, like a bird resting mid-flight. Despite his genius, Tesla's academic life was unstable. He became addicted to gambling, winning large sums and then losing everything. He played billiards with ruthless intensity, believing the patterns and angles could help him visualize higher mathematical principles. At one point, he lost his tuition money and dropped out of university in disgrace. It would be one of many times he chose obsession over stability. Yet he never stopped dreaming, even as he wandered, broke through the streets of Maribor and Prague. Even as he starved and worked as a manual draftsman, the machines in his mind kept spinning. One of his earliest and most persistent dreams was that of a world system, a universal energy network that would power devices without wires, transmit messages through the air, and harmonize humanity through invisible currents. To Tesla, the Earth was like a resonating bell. If you could strike the right frequency, you could send energy around the globe. This wasn't madness. It was physics, just a kind not yet understood. Then, in 1882, on a walk in a Budapest park, everything changed. Tesla was recovering from a near-death illness when he had what he later called a vision of fire. As the evening sun cast golden light through the trees and the bells of the city chimed in the distance, he froze. In that moment, he saw it, a fully functioning motor driven by a rotating magnetic field. He could see every coil, every spinning shaft, every switch. Like a flash of lightning, he said, and in an instant, the truth was revealed. Grabbing a stick, he knelt and drew the design in the dirt for his companion. "This," he whispered, "will change the world." It would become the basis of alternating current motors, what now drives the global power grid. But at that moment, Tesla had no resources, no lab, no employer. He had only his vision. Determined to bring his motor to life, Tesla sought investors in Paris and eventually caught the attention of the Continental Edison Company, which hired him to repair DC dynamos. His success there earned him an invitation to America, with a letter of introduction to the great Thomas Edison himself. Tesla arrived in New York in 1884 with little more than a suitcase, a handful of drawings, and the dream that he could bring light to the world. His first impression of Manhattan was electric, literally. Steam hissed from the city's grates, gas lights flickered in windows, and towering buildings pulsed with ambition. To Tesla, the city felt alive, humming with the very energy he hoped to harness. But what he didn't yet realize was that New York was not a place for dreamers. It was a battleground for industrial titans. And he was about to walk into the lion's den. When Tesla met Edison, the two men couldn't have been more different. Edison was a tinkerer, a brute force experimenter, willing to try 1,000 filaments to find one that worked. Tesla, on the other hand, designed in silence, seeking harmony, elegance, and universal principles. One worked through chaos, the other through order. At first, Tesla impressed Edison, who hired him to improve DC dynamos. Tesla claimed Edison promised $50,000 if he succeeded. Weeks later, when Tesla presented a vastly improved design, Edison reportedly laughed and said, "You don't understand our American humor." Tesla quit on the spot. It was one of the many betrayals that would haunt him. He would say later, "I don't care that they stole my idea. I care that they didn't have any of their own." But Tesla did not give up. Instead, he found new backers and built his AC motor in a small Manhattan lab. And when he demonstrated the rotating magnetic field to investors, watching the iron rotors spin without touching wires or gears, they gasped. The future had arrived. His alternating current system promised not only greater efficiency than Edison's direct current, but the ability to send power over vast distances. AC could electrify entire cities with a single generator, whereas DC needed costly, inefficient substations every mile. And yet, people were afraid. Electricity was still new. It shocked. It killed. And Edison capitalized on that fear, launching a ruthless smear campaign. Tesla would soon be drawn into a battle of ideologies, money, and pride, what would later be called the War of Currents. But before that storm arrived, Tesla allowed himself to dream even bigger. He believed he could transmit electricity wirelessly, not just through wires, but through the Earth itself. He began imagining devices that could draw energy directly from the air. He theorized communication without wires, light without lamps, motion without fuel. And then came the stranger dreams of receiving signals from other worlds, of mathematical codes hidden in the numbers 3, 6, and 9, of building machines that could read thoughts or manipulate time. Were these dreams madness? Or was Tesla simply tuned to a frequency the rest of the world had not yet discovered? His journals from this time read like poetry laced with quantum theory. He wrote of etheric vibrations, of energy fields dancing through the architecture of reality. He described a universe teeming with invisible forces and claimed that future humans would commune with the stars through frequencies of pure thought. He spoke less like a scientist and more like a prophet. And that, perhaps, was the beginning of his undoing. In a world driven by profits and patents, there was no room for dreamers. But Tesla was not concerned with fitting in. He was concerned with the truth. And the truth, he believed, was that energy was the breath of the cosmos, and he had glimpsed its lungs. The war of currents was not fought with guns or swords, but with voltage, ambition, and public opinion. It was a battle not just for technological supremacy, but for the very soul of the future. And at the center of it stood two men: Thomas Edison, the Wizard of Menlo Park, an American icon, inventor of the phonograph and popularizer of the incandescent bulb, and Nikola Tesla, the enigmatic genius from the Balkans, the man born in lightning, who spoke of a world powered through the ether. To understand how this war began, we must first look at what separated the two visions. Edison championed direct current DC, a steady one-directional flow of electricity. It was simple, reliable, and already in limited use. But DC had a fatal flaw. It couldn't travel far. After about a mile, power began to dissipate, requiring stations every few blocks to keep electricity flowing. It was costly, inefficient, and impractical for expanding cities. Tesla, on the other hand, had developed alternating current AC, a system where the electric charge changes direction periodically. A C could be easily transformed to different voltages and sent across vast distances with minimal loss. It was elegant, scalable, and, most importantly, revolutionary. Edison wasn't just opposed to a C, he was threatened by it. His entire business empire was built on DC. If Tesla's vision succeeded, it would render much of Edison's infrastructure obsolete. And so, the war began, not in laboratories, but in newspapers, courtrooms, and public squares. Edison, wielding his fame like a sword, launched a smear campaign to demonize AC. He claimed it was deadly, dangerous, and irresponsible. To prove his point, he staged grotesque public demonstrations, where he electrocuted animals using AC current, dogs, calves, even a horse. The most infamous act came in 1903, when Edison's team electrocuted Topsy the elephant, a circus animal deemed too dangerous to live. Before a crowd of spectators, they ran 6,600 volts of AC through her massive body. She collapsed in seconds. A film crew captured it all. It was a horrific act and a brutal propaganda tactic. Tesla, by contrast, refused to fight with such tactics. He believed science should uplift humanity, not terrify it. To prove a sea's safety, he conducted demonstrations of his own, but with himself as the subject. In packed lecture halls, he would allow hundreds of thousands of volts of AC electricity to pass through his body. He would light bulbs with his fingers, shoot electric arcs from his hands, and create halos of blue fire around his head. The crowds gasped. To them, Tesla was not just a scientist. He was a magician, a man who could speak the language of lightning. But he was not alone in the fight. Enter George Westinghouse, an industrialist and inventor who believed in Tesla's AC system. Where Edison saw a threat, Westinghouse saw potential. He bought Tesla's patents for the AC motor and generator for a then massive sum of $60,000, including royalties, giving Tesla financial freedom for the first time. Together, Tesla and Westinghouse began building sea power stations across the country. Edison responded by trying to sue them out of existence, launching endless patent wars. He lobbied government officials, pressured the press, and even tried to sabotage their installations. But the tide began to turn. In 1893, the U.S. government sought a power system for the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, the greatest world fair of its time. Westinghouse bid using Tesla's AC system. Edison's General Electric bid DC. The AC team won. What followed was nothing short of historic. Over 100,000 electric lamps, powered by Tesla's alternating current, lit up the night sky in a blaze of glory. It was the first all-electric fair in history, and the sight was unlike anything humanity had ever witnessed. People wept. Children fell silent. For the first time, night had become day, and Tesla had made it so. His system didn't just power the lights, it ran elevators, trains, exhibits, and fountains that pulsed with color. The future had arrived, and it was humming with Tesla's current. The final blow to Edison's DC dominance came with the harnessing of Niagara Falls. In 1895, Tesla and Westinghouse were tasked with building the first major hydroelectric plant at Niagara. There had been skepticism. Could a sea really deliver power over 26 miles to Buffalo? Could the system scale to industrial levels? When the plant was activated, the turbines, designed by Tesla, began to spin. The falls roared with divine thunder. And across the distance, Buffalo lit up. AC had won. Tesla had tamed a river of power and made it speak. Newspapers declared Tesla the victor. Westinghouse became rich. Edison, bitter and defeated, left the electric power industry entirely. And yet, Tesla made a stunning decision. Despite the massive success of the Niagara plant and his widespread fame, he tore up his royalty contract with Westinghouse. The company was under financial strain, and paying Tesla per motor would bankrupt it. So, in a moment of sacrifice, almost mythical in its generosity, Tesla gave up millions in future earnings. He believed the technology was more important than wealth. Money does not represent such a value as men have placed upon it, he said. All my money has been invested into experiments with which I have made new discoveries, enabling mankind to have a little easier life. In a world that worshipped profit, Tesla had become an outsider, not because he failed, but because he had succeeded without greed. It was a victory in science, but a wound in business. Tesla would never again reach such heights of influence. And yet, in this moment, the world changed forever. Power grids across the globe adopted alternating current. Factories, homes, cities, and eventually entire nations lit up thanks to his invention. Every motor, every plug, every light switch owes a debt to the mind of the man who walked in storms. But even as the lights of the world brightened, shadows crept into Tesla's life. He began to lose friends. He withdrew from public life. He spoke of visions, of cosmic forces, of signals from Mars. Investors grew uneasy. And thus, just as the world embraced his ideas, it began to turn away from the man behind them. The war of currents was over. Tesla had won. But the next wars, within his mind, against his enemies, and against the ticking clock of time, had just begun. By the turn of the 20th century, Nikola Tesla had become something more than a scientist. He was a symbol. To the press, he was the man who had lit the world. To investors, he was a volatile genius, brilliant but unpredictable. And to himself, he was merely getting started. For while the world celebrated alternating current, Tesla was already moving beyond it. He believed wires themselves were unnecessary. That energy could be transmitted through the earth and the atmosphere, invisibly, boundlessly, and freely. And thus was born Tesla's most ambitious dream: wireless power for all of humanity. Tesla imagined a world where energy flowed like air, harvested from the Earth's natural electrical resonance. No more cords, no more fuel. No more inequality between the connected and the disconnected. Light, heat, motion, and information delivered wirelessly to every home, ship, plane, and even the most remote village. His obsession grew. He began speaking of a world system, a network of towers that would transmit both electricity and information across the globe. Radio, fax, even visual messages, all possible, he claimed, with the right frequency. And at the heart of this dream stood one monument, Wardenclyffe Tower. In 1901, with funding from the legendary financier J.P. Morgan, Tesla began building a massive wireless transmission tower on Long Island, standing 187 feet tall with a copper dome 68 feet wide. Wardenclyffe Tower was an architectural hybrid of science fiction and mysticism. Tesla envisioned it as the first of many towers around the planet, part of an Earth-resonating system that would use the ionosphere and the Earth itself as conductors. Unlike Marconi's radio, which transmitted short signals and pulses, Tesla believed his system could send continuous energy and complex signals across the oceans, including electricity. But what Morgan didn't realize when he invested was that Tesla wasn't just building a radio tower. He was building a machine to give away energy for free. When Tesla explained the full scale of his plan to Morgan, how people would be able to draw power from the earth with simple devices and no need for utility companies, Morgan grew cold. "Where do I put the meter?" Morgan allegedly asked. There was no meter. Tesla was not creating a product. He was creating a revolution. Morgan pulled additional funding. Other investors, wary of the scale and secrecy of the project, withdrew support. And so, Wardenclyffe Tower stood, unfinished, gleaming in the sun, a ghost of a future that never came. Tesla refused to abandon the project. He poured his own money into it. He sold patents. He worked in isolation, sometimes not eating for days, surviving on crackers and milk. He began speaking less of science and more of universal forces, cosmic harmonics, and Earth's musical frequency. And then, in 1903, a final blow. Marconi, using 17 of Tesla's patented technologies, transmitted a radio signal across the Atlantic. The world cheered him as the inventor of radio. Tesla was enraged, but lacked the legal and financial power to fight back. Bankrupt and ridiculed, he sank into depression. In a symbolic act of despair, he fired up Wardenclyffe one last time, unleashing a massive surge of power into the ground and air. Witnesses miles away reported strange lights in the sky, birds falling from the air, and ground tremors. Some say compasses spun wildly. Others reported the sudden dimming of nearby town lights. Then the tower fell silent. Tesla would never power it again. Years later, the US government ordered Wardenclyffe Tower demolished. Fearing it could be used by foreign enemies during World War I, some claim it was. Because Tesla's technology was still dangerously ahead of its time. The rubble was cleared. The dream was buried. But not forgotten. Wardenclyffe Tower did not die without leaving behind mystery. For decades, conspiracy theories have surrounded its purpose. Some claim it was a weapon, capable of focusing electrical energy like a death ray. Others suggest it was a dimensional gateway or a device to contact alien intelligence. Tesla himself once claimed he was receiving signals from Mars, suggesting that the tower had picked up intelligent patterns not explainable by solar or atmospheric interference. In one letter, he wrote, "The changes I noted were taking place periodically and with such a clear suggestion of number and order that they were not traceable to any cause then known to me. I felt as though I were listening to the voices of the stars." His critics called him mad. But even today, scientists remain puzzled by some of Tesla's experiments. Some have revisited his ideas on Earth resonance and found that his theories, while incomplete, anticipated certain aspects of modern wireless networks, Schumann resonances, and even scalar energy fields. Others point to declassified FBI files released after Tesla's death, which revealed that the US government took his notes seriously enough to seize all documents from his hotel room immediately after he died. Some files remain missing. Others were never released in full. Why would the government care about the inventions of a bankrupt old man? What secrets did Tesla's tower really hold? Though the original Wardenclyffe was destroyed, Tesla's dream of wireless power has begun to flicker back to life in the 21st century. Researchers are now developing wireless charging systems, resonant inductive coupling, and atmospheric energy harvesting, many based on principles Tesla described more than a century ago. And in 2021, the Wardenclyffe site was purchased by the Tesla Science Center, with plans to restore the land and turn it into a museum and global innovation hub. In this way, the tower rises again, not as a monument of the past, but as a beacon to the future Tesla foresaw. He once said, "Let the future tell the truth and evaluate each one according to his work and accomplishments. The present is theirs. The future for which I have really worked is mine." By the second decade of the 20th century, Nikola Tesla was already an enigma. To the public, he was either a forgotten genius or a mad inventor. To the press, he was unpredictable, at times giving interviews about death, rays, and Martian messages. And to scientists, he was a puzzle, a man whose ideas defied conventional physics, but who had accomplished so much that he could not be easily dismissed. But among his strangest claims, one stands out, not just for its drama, but for the tangible chaos it may have caused. It is the story of the earthquake machine. It's a little oscillator that could break a city. Tesla was obsessed with frequency, and for good reason. He believed that everything in the universe vibrated. Every object, every molecule, every planet. He once said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." This wasn't just poetic. Tesla believed that if he could discover the natural resonant frequency of any object, he could shake it apart or stabilize it with very little power. And so he built a small device. It was a mechanical oscillator, barely the size of a grapefruit, that pulsed at high frequency. Unlike his electrical inventions, this one didn't emit energy through wires or radio waves, but through vibration. He called it his mechanical resonator. The myth goes like this. In 1898, while experimenting with his oscillator in his Manhattan laboratory, Tesla fastened it to a steel support beam. He began tuning the frequency slowly, adjusting it until the vibrations matched the natural frequency of the structure. Suddenly, the building began to tremble. The windows rattled, plaster cracked, furniture bounced. The entire lab shook as if an earthquake had erupted from beneath the floorboards. Across the street, the effects were felt too. Neighbors reported tremors and panicked, believing a real quake had struck New York City. Workers in nearby buildings fled to the streets. Police were called. As the legend tells it, Tesla realized what he had done and, in a flash of clarity, smashed the device with a hammer just before the police arrived. When they burst in, they found Tesla alone, dust-covered, completely calm. "Gentlemen," he allegedly said, "if I had kept it going 10 minutes more, I could have brought down the building." While no formal record of the incident exists in police reports, multiple journalists and assistants later confirmed that Tesla himself recounted the story often, and always with the same tone of amused warning. But the implications were staggering. If Tesla's oscillator really worked, it meant that any structure on Earth could be toppled not by explosives, but by resonant frequency, applied at just the right pitch. A bridge, a skyscraper, even the ground itself could be shaken to collapse with barely any energy, just precision. And Tesla wasn't bluffing. He believed the Earth had its own frequency, what he called a terrestrial stationary wave. He claimed he could send a vibration through the planet and have it echo back, like striking a bell. He even said, "With this principle, I could cause the Earth to split like an apple." Scientists dismissed it as mad rhetoric. But decades later, the idea of resonance-based destruction would surface again. During the infamous collapse of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge in 1940, engineers witnessed the effects of wind matching the bridge's resonant frequency, causing it to ripple, twist, and ultimately fall. It wasn't an earthquake or an explosion. It was vibration. Tesla had been right. Resonance was real and deadly. The visions and the flash of light, but Tesla's experiments weren't limited to the physical world. During his later years, Tesla began to speak more frequently of visions, flashes of insight that struck him like lightning. He described them not as thoughts, but as fully formed images that appeared before his eyes, often accompanied by intense light and sound. This wasn't new. As a child, Tesla had described blinding flashes of light that preceded inventions or ideas. He would see intricate blueprints hovering in the air, complete with measurements, dimensions, and even how the parts would move. But in his later years, these visions intensified. He once told a journalist, "In a moment of inspiration, I saw the entire design of the induction motor complete, working, and turning. I saw it before I ever touched a tool. I only had to build what I saw." Tesla believed these visions came from a deeper plane, a source of universal knowledge. Some have speculated he experienced temporal lobe epilepsy, or that he had a unique form of photographic memory. Others believe he was simply so immersed in his work that his mind simulated entire machines in 3D space. But Tesla himself believed differently. He claimed to be tuning in to a universal frequency, something like the collective consciousness of the cosmos. His role, he said, was not to create, but to receive. "My brain is only a receiver. In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration." It was a radical idea. That invention was not just logic and engineering, but a kind of cosmic tuning fork. Tesla was simply the first to hear the melody. The story of Tesla's earthquake machine has never been proven, but it remains one of the most persistent legends in science. Some researchers have since replicated small-scale versions of Tesla's oscillator and found that under precise conditions, certain resonant effects do occur, particularly in metallic structures and bridges. Others believe the earthquake machine was just one of many suppressed inventions. In recent decades, conspiracy theories have flourished that Tesla had discovered free energy, that his earthquake machine was a prototype of an advanced seismic weapon, or even that it was the precursor to modern HARP technology, a real government project involving ionospheric research. Tesla's name appears in countless theories, often linked to weather control, energy, weapons, or suppressed knowledge. And while much of this is speculation, one fact remains. Tesla did build strange machines, and he did believe they could reshape the world. Tesla once said, "The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in one decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence." Was he hinting at vibrations, resonance, and hidden dimensions of energy? Was the earthquake machine merely an accident, or a key to something far greater? Whatever the truth, Part 6 reminds us that the boundaries between science and myth blur in the hands of a man like Tesla. By the 1930s, Nikola Tesla was old, frail, and largely forgotten by the public. The man who once electrified the world now fed pigeons in New York's Bryant Park and lived alone in a modest room at the Hotel New Yorker, room 3327. But in his mind, Tesla was still building the future, quietly, secretly, and with growing urgency. As war loomed in Europe and militarism escalated around the world, Tesla's final and most controversial invention began to take shape. He called it TELEFORCE. The press would give it another name, the death ray, Tesla's vision to end all wars. Unlike other weapons of the time, Tesla's death ray wasn't a gun, a bomb, or a beam of heat. It was, according to his description, a particle projection weapon, a machine capable of launching microscopic, electrically charged particles at tremendous speed over vast distances. Tesla claimed that his device could shoot a beam of particles through the air without dispersion, like a straight line of lightning, bring down enemy aircraft from hundreds of miles away, create an impenetrable wall of energy around a country's borders, make war obsolete because any attack would be met with invisible, instant destruction. He envisioned a global system of defensive energy domes, an invisible Chinese wall of the Republic, as he put it, that would prevent invasion, deter aggression, and protect all nations, not just the powerful. Tesla believed such a device could preserve peace, not by violence, but by making war utterly futile. He said, "My invention will shoot microscopic particles through free air, and it will create a wall of power so formidable that it will turn away any invading army, a weapon that never fired or did it." Tesla worked on the design for years, making cryptic references to prototypes and secret tests. In 1937, at the age of 81, he submitted a detailed paper to several world governments titled New Art of Projecting Concentrated Non-Dispersive Energy Through Natural Media. In it, he described a method of accelerating particles using electrostatic repulsion, an idea that still baffles scientists today. He even offered to sell the invention to the League of Nations, believing it could prevent World War II, but no one took him seriously. The world was moving toward conventional warfare, tanks, bombs, aircraft carriers, and Tesla's proposal sounded like science fiction. Still, rumors spread. It was said that Tesla had built a small prototype in a lab. Others claimed he had demonstrated it to unnamed military officials behind closed doors. Some even whispered that his invention had already been confiscated, too dangerous to allow into the hands of any one nation. In 1934, an article in the New York Times stirred the imagination. Tesla, at 78, bears new death beam. He says his beam could melt any engine, down any plane, and protect America like a wall of glass. The world took notice, so did governments. The FBI, the OSS, and the mystery of Tesla's death. Tesla died in 1943 in room 3327 of the Hotel New Yorker. Alone, broke, and whispering to pigeons, he slipped quietly into history. But that's not where the story ends. Just hours after his death, the U.S. government moved in. Agents from the Office of Alien Property, despite Tesla being a naturalized U.S. citizen, seized all of his belongings, papers, notebooks, diagrams, and devices. Some of those files were reviewed by a team of experts led by Dr. John G. Trump, uncle of future U.S. President Donald Trump. Dr. Trump later reported that Tesla's work was speculative and philosophical, containing no new sound, workable principles or methods for realizing such results. But others weren't so sure. Many of Tesla's papers remained classified for decades. Some have never been released. Conspiracy theories multiplied. That Tesla's death ray had been real, that it had been tested and even used, and that governments around the world raced to uncover and replicate it. Declassified FBI documents released in the early 2000s revealed that the US government was concerned about Tesla's work falling into Soviet hands. Yugoslavian and Soviet officials had attempted to obtain his files. Some of Tesla's belongings may have been transferred under secret military channels. Where did those documents go? Why were they classified? And why would the government care so much about the belongings of an old, supposedly delusional man? Tesla's influence on modern weaponry. Some researchers believe Tesla's concepts influenced future military projects. In particular, the Strategic Defense Initiative (SDI), nicknamed Star Wars, proposed in the 1980s by President Ronald Reagan, which envisioned space-based particle beam weapons capable of neutralizing incoming missiles. The HARP project in Alaska, which studies the ionosphere and has often been associated, rightly or wrongly, with Tesla's theories of energy manipulation. Modern directed energy weapons DOs, including railguns and particle accelerators, some of which resemble Tesla's original ideas. And then there's the idea of the Tesla shield, a hypothetical energy dome, made from ionized particles that could neutralize objects entering its field. It's still the stuff of science fiction, but based on scientific principles Tesla himself described. What if Tesla had indeed laid the groundwork for these technologies long before the tools existed to build them? What's often forgotten in tales of Tesla's death ray is this: he was not a warmonger. He despised violence. Tesla watched the rise of fascism and nationalism in horror. He was deeply affected by the loss of life in World War I and believed that technology could be used to make war not just less deadly, but impossible. The death ray, in his mind, was a peace ray, a guardian, an energetic shield that made aggression pointless. It was the ultimate paradox, a weapon so powerful it would never need to be used. It is not a weapon of destruction, Tesla said. It is a weapon to end all weapons. But in the years that followed his death, the world went another way. Wars continued. Nations built weapons of unthinkable power. Tesla's peaceful shield was replaced by nuclear deterrence. And yet, his dream endures. In our modern era of energy weapons, hypersonic threats, and artificial intelligence-driven warfare, Tesla's words sound less like fantasy and more like foresight. He may have died with his greatest invention unrealized. Or maybe it was simply hidden, waiting for a world ready to use it, not for power, but for peace. As the world advanced without him, Nikola Tesla retreated further into silence. The man who once lit up the skies of New York with artificial lightning, who walked among kings and tycoons, and who once dreamed of powering the planet, now spent his final years feeding birds in Bryant Park. To outsiders, it looked like madness, but to Tesla, the birds, particularly one white pigeon, were more than animals. They were symbols, messengers, perhaps even keys to a hidden language of nature he had long tried to decode. What unfolded in these quiet, final chapters of Tesla's life was not the story of a failed inventor, but of a man who believed he was on the brink of understanding the deepest truths of existence. The white pigeon. Among the many pigeons Tesla fed daily, one stood out. A pure white female with soft red eyes. He never named her. But to Tesla, she was no ordinary bird. "I loved that pigeon as a man loves a woman," he once said. "She was the joy of my life. If she needed me, nothing else mattered." The pigeon visited him regularly, flying through his hotel window, perching on his arm, and eating from his hand. One night, Tesla claimed that she came to him in a moment unlike any other. She hovered above his bed, glowing with radiant light. Her eyes, he said, were shining like two powerful searchlights. In that moment, he had a revelation. Yes, he said, it was a real light, a powerful, dazzling, blinding light. A light more intense than I had ever produced by the most powerful lamps in my laboratory. And then she died. Tesla said that when the pigeon passed, something inside him broke. When that pigeon died, something went out of my life. Up to that time, I knew with certainty that I would complete my work, no matter how ambitious my program. But when she died, I knew my life's work was finished. What did he mean? Why was this moment so critical? Some speculate that Tesla saw the bird as a spiritual manifestation, a divine signal, an ethereal intelligence, perhaps even a representation of a soul. Others believe it was simply the breaking point for a man who had given his entire life to an indifferent world. But those who knew him say that after the bird's death, Tesla became quieter, more withdrawn, and more obsessed than ever with numbers, patterns, and the great cosmic code. Tesla and the obsession with 3, 6, and 9. Throughout his life, Tesla exhibited strange compulsions. He would walk around a building 3 times before entering. He insisted on staying in hotel rooms with numbers divisible by 3. He counted the number of steps he took and the repetitions of his actions, always aiming for 3, 6, or 9. He refused to touch anything unless he'd calculated its numerical harmony. To many, this looked like obsessive-compulsive disorder. But Tesla saw something more. If you only knew the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, then you would have the key to the universe, he allegedly said. But what did he mean? Modern numerologists, physicists, and Tesla enthusiasts have speculated endlessly that 3, 6, and 9 are universal harmonics, representing the building blocks of reality. That these numbers form a numerical pattern in vortex mathematics that governs everything from galaxy spirals to atomic structures. That Tesla believed energy, frequency, and vibration followed a sacred geometric code, one that, if unlocked, could reveal infinite energy, time travel, or even the architecture of consciousness itself. Was Tesla ahead of his time or simply obsessed? It's worth noting, 3, 6, and 9 do appear in fascinating places. They form nonlinear repeating patterns in binary and base 10 systems. Some physicists now study symmetry groups and resonance loops that seem eerily aligned with Tesla's ideas. Yet he never published a formal theory. His notes on these numbers, if they existed, were either lost or never written down. Still, the mystery lingers. Why would a man of such scientific precision risk his credibility over numerical superstitions? Unless they weren't superstitions at all. In his final interviews, Tesla often spoke of the universe not as chaos, but as a machine governed by precision and rhythm. He likened reality to a symphony. Everything is the light. In one of its rays is the fate of nations. Each nation has its own ray in that great light source which we see as the sun. And remember, no one who is there has died. They transformed into the light and so exist still. This wasn't metaphor. Tesla believed the universe was made not of matter, but of vibration, energy frequencies that gave rise to particles, time, and even thought. He believed that by tuning into the correct frequency, one could communicate across dimensions, tap into infinite energy, download thoughts and knowledge directly from the cosmos. This is why he was so focused on wireless transmission, resonance, and electromagnetic fields. To him, these weren't tools, they were bridges. He was trying to speak the language of the universe. Tesla even believed that extraterrestrial intelligence might already be communicating, not with radio or symbols, but with vibration patterns embedded in natural forces. The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, he said, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence. This is perhaps Tesla's most mysterious legacy. Not his coils or patents or even his predictions, but his unshakable belief that reality itself was code, and he had spent his life trying to decrypt it. In his last decade, Tesla hinted that he had written a final theory of everything, a unified field theory that connected gravity, electromagnetism, vibration, and consciousness. But these papers were never found. Some say he destroyed them. Others believe they were seized by government agencies hidden from the world. A few believe they still exist, locked away in secret archives, or perhaps scattered in private collections, mislabeled, unrecognized. What if Tesla had found something profound, something the world wasn't ready to understand? As the white pigeon faded from the skies of New York, so too did Tesla from public memory. But in the patterns of his life, his numbers, his frequencies, his devotion to light, we glimpse something more than invention. We glimpse a man who saw reality differently, not as atoms colliding in a void, but as a symphony waiting to be heard. By the time Nikola Tesla reached his late 70s, the world had already moved on. The radio, radar, and television, technologies Tesla had foreseen or laid the groundwork for, were now being claimed by other inventors and corporations. Yet behind the closed doors of room 3327 at the Hotel New Yorker, Tesla claimed he was working on something far greater. He was experimenting, he said, with time itself. Was he serious? Or was it the rambling of a mind touched by genius and weathered by solitude? What followed were some of the most bizarre, controversial, and unsettling chapters in the Tesla legend, where the lines between science fiction, and conspiracy dissolve. I have seen the past, present, and future. In a series of unpublished notes and private letters, Tesla spoke of a discovery made during experiments involving high-voltage electricity and magnetic fields, likely connected to his earlier work with the Tesla coil and the infamous Wardenclyffe Tower. He claimed that, under very specific electromagnetic conditions, time itself became elastic. I can see the past, present, and future all at once, Tesla allegedly told a colleague. Time is not what we think it is. He described being briefly out of phase with time, and even spoke of time slips, in which he became partially invisible or entered a kind of timeless void. According to one tale, long dismissed but still repeated in fringe circles, Tesla nearly died during one of these experiments. A sudden arc of energy surrounded him, freezing him in space. He claimed to be outside his own body, watching the room from above. Moments later, he collapsed. This experience terrified him, but also confirmed a theory he had long suspected. Time is a field, and fields can be manipulated. Did Tesla build a time machine? Tesla never used the term time machine, but he often referred to a device capable of temporal displacement through vibrational tuning. He theorized that just as energy could be focused into a beam, so too could consciousness, and that with the right equipment, one could move that beam through time. One unverified blueprint, allegedly drawn by Tesla and smuggled out before his death, showed a machine composed of a central oscillator generating high-frequency vibrations, a toroidal field generator creating a spatial distortion loop, quartz lenses to concentrate light and modulate electromagnetic waves. It sounds like something from a sci-fi novel. But many believe that Tesla was, in fact, working on resonant field harmonics, a real, though theoretical method of manipulating time-space relationships using vibration and magnetism. While there's no hard evidence this device was ever built, rumors persist that a prototype was stored at Wardenclyffe before it was dismantled, or possibly at a secret underground lab in Colorado Springs. These rumors became entangled with an even larger myth: the Philadelphia experiment. The Philadelphia experiment, Tesla's ghost technology. In 1943, the year Tesla died, a U.S. Navy ship, the USS Eldridge, allegedly vanished during a secret military experiment in Philadelphia Harbor. The goal, to render the ship invisible to radar. But according to witnesses and conspiracy theorists, the experiment went far beyond that. The ship allegedly teleported to Norfolk, Virginia. Crew members were said to be fused into the steel hull, driven mad or disintegrated. Others emerged with strange powers or memory loss. The core technology, supposedly based on Tesla's lost field equations. The U.S. Navy denies this ever occurred. But some say Tesla had warned the military not to proceed with their misuse of his theories, particularly his incomplete unified field theory. He believed such manipulation of spacetime without full understanding could tear the fabric of reality or the human mind. If the stories are true, the experiment went forward anyway, without Tesla to guide it, and the consequences were catastrophic. Of course, no official proof exists, but many believe that Tesla's work on electromagnetic cloaking, teleportation, and time displacement was decades ahead of its time, and that modern research into quantum teleportation and wormholes echoes his forbidden notes. Prophecies that came true. Tesla was not only a scientist, he was a visionary. Many of his statements, once mocked, now seem uncannily accurate. He predicted wireless communication across the world years before the radio was officially invented. Portable devices for voice and image transmission, now known as smartphones. Remote-controlled warfare, drones, and autonomous weapons. Artificial intelligence. One day, machines will do the thinking for man. The Internet of Things. When wireless is perfectly applied, the whole Earth will be converted into a huge brain. All things will be particles of a real and rhythmic whole. But some of his prophecies were even stranger. In an obscure 1926 interview, Tesla claimed that women would soon surpass men in intelligence and influence, leading the world into a more peaceful era. He also predicted the rise of global climate control, self-driving cars, and a wireless power grid that could eliminate poverty and resource wars. None of these existed in his lifetime, but all are either real today or in active development. And then there were his predictions about other worlds. "We are not alone in the universe," Tesla once said. "I have received intelligent signals from beyond Earth. We will make contact, not through language, but through vibration." Many dismiss this as delusion, but today, with the rise of SETI, quantum communication, and the study of non-local consciousness, even this idea seems less absurd. Tesla may have been tuned to frequencies we still don't understand, a mind too advanced for its time. Tesla once wrote, "The present is theirs. The future for which I really worked is mine." Perhaps he was right. Maybe the world rejected Tesla not because he failed, but because he succeeded too early. His ideas didn't die. They simply lay dormant, waiting for science to catch up. And now, as we explore quantum computing, time crystals, and alternate dimensions, the theories he once whispered in empty hotel rooms suddenly seem relevant again. He wasn't trying to build a time machine. He was the time machine, a man from the future living in the wrong century. January 7th, 1943. Nikola Tesla was found dead in his room at the Hotel New Yorker. Room 3327. He died alone, penniless, and uncelebrated. His name a faint whisper in the electric age he helped create. But in the moment of his death, something strange happened. Within hours, agents from the Office of Alien Property stormed his room and confiscated all his notes, drawings, and inventions. Despite being a U.S. citizen, Tesla's documents were deemed sensitive, possibly dangerous. Among the items seized were blueprints labeled Teleforce, strange geometric symbols, frequency logs, and references to something called the dynamic theory of gravity. What was so threatening about the work of a forgotten man? And why, decades later, do Tesla's secrets continue to inspire stories of forbidden science, hidden energy, and knowledge not meant for this age? Tesla left behind over 80 trunks filled with papers, models, and devices. But after his death, only a fraction was cataloged, and much of it vanished. Years later, declassified FBI documents revealed that Tesla had been under surveillance. His ideas, especially those concerning weapons, wireless power, and interplanetary communication, were considered strategically significant during World War II. One document reads, "Subject possesses ideas which, if realized, could drastically change warfare and communications. Recommendation: immediate evaluation and containment." The agent tasked with evaluating Tesla's papers was Dr. John G. Trump, an electrical engineer and uncle of future U.S. President Donald Trump. Dr. Trump later claimed the documents were speculative and of no military value. But some researchers believe key technologies were quietly absorbed into classified programs. Others suspect that Tesla's most advanced theories were deliberately suppressed, hidden to maintain control over energy and technological development. The secret technologies. Several of Tesla's ideas remain unresolved mysteries, including 1. The Teleforce death ray. Tesla claimed to have invented a device capable of projecting high-energy particles over vast distances. Not a ray in the Hollywood sense, but a focused beam of electrically charged particles that could destroy anything in its path. He proposed it to world leaders as a peace ray, to end war by making invasion impossible. But no version of it was ever found. Some believe the designs were hidden by Tesla. Others think governments secretly replicated them. In 2018, documents from the Yugoslav government archives surfaced, describing Tesla's repeated attempts to donate the death ray to his homeland, allegedly offering it for free. Why was it never built? Or was it 2. The dynamic theory of gravity. Tesla's uncompleted masterwork. This theory attempted to unify gravity with electromagnetism, decades before Einstein or modern quantum physicists even approached the idea. He described gravity not as a pull, but as a push from the ether, a sea of unseen energy that pervaded space. Tesla wrote, "There is no energy in matter other than that received from the environment." To this day, no complete manuscript of this theory has been found. Some believe the FBI has it locked away. Others think Tesla deliberately scattered it across multiple papers to avoid theft. If he had succeeded, this would have predated modern string theory, zero-point energy concepts, and even anti-gravity research. 3. Unlimited wireless energy. At the core of Tesla's vision was a world free from fossil fuels and energy monopolies. He imagined giant towers, like Wardenclyffe, transmitting power through the earth and sky. No wires, no fuel. Just clean ambient energy harvested from the planet's natural electric resonance. Electric power is everywhere present in unlimited quantities. It can drive the world's machinery without the need for coal, oil, or gas. Today, the dream of wireless power continues, with inductive charging, long-distance wireless electricity, and even space-based solar systems. But none have yet realized Tesla's vision of global free energy. Why not? Was the science flawed? Or was the world simply not ready? The cult of Tesla. In death, Tesla became something he never was in life, a legend. His name now echoes through pop culture, featured in films like The Prestige, games like Command and Conquer, and shows like Doctor Who. Science, honored in the naming of the SI unit for magnetic flux density, the Tesla, and in the electric car company that adopted his name. To some, Tesla is a tragic genius. To others, a mad prophet. And to a growing few, he's seen as a man from the future, born into the wrong century. Every year, new claims emerge that he was in contact with extraterrestrials, that his work is used in classified black-budget military projects, that his time theories are the basis for hidden propulsion systems and dimensional gateways. Are these myths, or echoes of truths too strange to face? Was Tesla an outsider to-time? In his most mystical moments, Tesla spoke as if he didn't quite belong to Earth, or at least to its current state. He claimed to receive signals from space. He spoke of vibrations revealing truths hidden from human perception. He once said, "My brain is only a receiver. In the universe, there's a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration." He hinted that ideas came to him fully formed, as if downloaded. Modern thinkers have compared this to quantum consciousness, or the idea that minds can connect to a universal field of intelligence. Was Tesla simply a man with profound intuition? Or did he tap into something larger? If so, perhaps his greatest invention wasn't a device, but a vision of reality where energy, thought, and time are all connected. Today, as we stand on the brink of technologies Tesla dreamed of, a world of wireless communication, artificial intelligence, and free energy, his work grows more relevant. He died alone, but his legacy is everywhere, in every wireless signal, in every electric motor. In the dream of clean power, of peaceful technology, of unlocking the hidden forces of nature. And maybe, just maybe, in the hum of a forgotten frequency, buried beneath the noise of the modern world, Tesla is still speaking. We just haven't learned how to listen. Let the future tell the truth and evaluate each one according to his work and accomplishments. The present is theirs. The future, for which I really worked, is mine. Nikola Tesla. In a world now defined by technology, one man's shadow only grows longer. He died without money. He died without recognition. But he did not die without purpose, because in every phone signal, every electric car, every whisper of zero-point energy or gravity manipulation, Tesla is still there. He once said, "The present is theirs. The future, for which I really worked, is mine." And now, as we stand on the threshold of unlocking technologies he only dreamed of, wireless energy, interplanetary communication, even time manipulation, his name returns, not as a ghost, but as a guide. So, if someday we illuminate cities from the sky, or bend magnetic fields to levitate machines, or decode the hidden energies of the earth, remember this: Nikola Tesla didn't belong to the 19th century. He belonged to the 21st, and maybe far beyond. And if this story stirred something in you, an idea, a spark, a question, don't let it fade. Subscribe for more stories that challenge what you think you know. Like, share, and watch till the very end, because sometimes the answers we seek were whispered long ago by minds the world wasn't ready to hear. Tesla saw it first. He built it first. And he gave it all away for us. Let the world remember,